Hello team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan MS Pitts. This is a Ukraine war, news update appendix. We're going to look through a couple of missing Andrew Perpetual loss lists from the last couple of days, because I probably won't have time to go through both of them tomorrow if there's another one that comes out, especially since, this is the one from the 31st, very low numbers really, and then we get to this one from the January the 1st, which is stupendous, okay? And I think that's largely due to a Magyar video dropping that shows inordinate amounts, as they often do. These big montages show inordinate amounts of equipment being taken out. This first one is from the 31st, 142 personnel lost visually confirmed on that day. We'll look at now the Ukrainian figures before the Russian, but just in general, this is what, 10-1 ratio? Really good ratio for the Ukrainians here, with only a single piece of artillery, a couple of infantry fighting vehicles, both destroyed BMPs, and an ATV, and a couple of civilian vehicles. So 3 combat asset losses, vastly more Russian combat asset losses, including a Mi-8 helicopter taken out from that unmanned sea vehicle using an R-73 air-to-air missile. That's destroyed. We also hear another helicopter was lost as a result of that same interchange, but there is no visual confirmation of that one, but I do believe the Russians have admitted it. Recovery vehicle, Bren 1 taken out, a couple of drones there, unmanned sea vehicle. Interesting, a Russian unmanned sea vehicle, and an unmanned ground vehicle there. Then a lot of, or quite a few, half dozen D-30 old howitzers there. Drone, barrel destroyed, barrel damaged and destroyed, and etc, etc. So I wonder if that's a Magyar video. Sometimes you get these montages of just howitzers getting taken out, and they go for particular places on them. So even if they are just damaged, they're likely taken out pretty fundamentally, because trying to replace a barrel on a howitzer is not easy. Yet you can fix it, but that ain't going to be seeing the battlefield for quite a long time, I would have thought. So that's also probably the case when we see artillery on a daily basis. Well, it's difficult. These ones where they go for the barrels, they know what they're doing there. In general strikes where you see an artillery piece, kind of a puff of smoke on a howitzer, actually is not always going to be doing a lot of damage, because they're fairly simple pieces of kit, and unless you're destroying the ammunition nearby and you have a big explosion, unless you're taking out very particular parts of the howitzer, they can sometimes just be bouncing off tires or whatever. Tanks, 4 tanks there for the Russians, 3 of them destroyed or abandoned. Infantry fighting vehicles, 5 of those, all of those destroyed and abandoned. So pretty good proportions there for the Ukrainians. Nothing too serious in terms of losses. A couple of AFVs, a few APCs, and then trucks, ATVs, and civilian vehicles. The usual list of Russian losses. It's that helicopter that's going to hurt a lot, and the sheer numbers relative to the Ukrainian losses on that day. Then when we come to the next day, it's absolutely incredible. January the 1st, just a huge list of vehicles. So when we look at the Ukrainian combat asset losses, you're talking about that amount, and just in terms of artillery, the Russians have lost more. That's probably 4-1 loss ratio, 3-4-1 loss ratio of combat assets. And remember, a lot of these will be combat assets as well. In terms of Brown, again, in fact, the Ukrainians, they've lost far fewer bits of kit, but most of them are irretrievably lost, destroyed or abandoned. The Russians have far more kit, slightly better ratio, but much more of it. And then when same point with the artillery, although they may be damaged, these pieces, they probably aren't going to see the light of day for some time. And then an awful lot of civilian vehicles and ATVs, almost certainly used in some kind of combat asset manner. We'll go to the Ukrainian losses first. A command and control vehicle, M577. We've seen a few of those get taken out in the Kursk region particularly. Then we have a counter-battery radar. Not sure what type it was, taken out by a Molniya. A Molniya 2 drone. They've obviously updated that. A single artillery piece, single tank, T-64. 4 infantry fighting vehicles, 1 abandoned Bradley there. Then drone drop mines Yeah, and then we have 4 MRAPs, APC, AFE, a couple of IMVs. Most of these Western provided or indigenously produced. There's a couple of BTRs and BRDMs, sorry, at the top. So nothing too crazy for the Russians, for the Ukrainians there lost. And when we come to the Russian losses, they are stupendous in the sheer volume, including 2 air defense systems, a Pantsir S1 taken out by Gimler. I saw a Pantsir taken out and it had fake snow falling in it because obviously the time of year, so whoever put the video together. But I was looking at the foliage and thinking, it's quite green, and it might not be recent. If it's that same footage, it might not be recent, or it could be, and I just, those were evergreen trees or something. Air defense, a book system damaged as well. So that's good news for the Ukrainians. Electronic warfare system loaded on a loaf. And then we get down to artillery, and we have breach damaged by an FPV drone. And you could be, well, it's unlikely that you're going to see those repaired particularly easily. I don't know how badly the breaches need to be damaged for them to be sent off for a long time. But we have a Grad 1 and BM-21 multiple launch rocket system there as well, BM-21 Grad. So a couple of those damaged. You've got an M46, a very, very old howitzer damaged as well. And then most of these are D30s or other howitzers, a few more recent ones, but still these are all fairly old bits of kit, to be perfectly frank. But a lot of artillery taken out, and I assume that is, again, a Magyar video. Tanks, we have about 8 tanks here, 5 of them abandoned, 3 tracked garden sheds out of those 8 tanks. Again, same questions I always ask, which is, what does this tell us about the Russian equipment, access to decent equipment? They don't appear to be able to use APCs, otherwise they would here. Why they're using tanks as an APC with glorified armor on top just to move people from A to B. This is suboptimal, and I think I'm pretty sure this tells us that the Russians are in a bit of a challenging situation with regard to having the right equipment for the job. Infantry fighting vehicles, 6 of these taken out, 4 destroyed, BMPs, a couple of other ones as well, BTRs and BMD. Some armoured fighting vehicles, generic ones here, obviously 2 destroyed to know what they exactly are. But of those 5, 4 of them irretrievably lost. And then APCs, a good 7 of those, almost all destroyed and abandoned. And TLBs, and then we get down to MRAPs. So 3 MRAPs there, which is unusual for the Russians. They don't usually operate too many MRAPs, mine-resistant ambush protection vehicles. Then we're down to trucks at the bottom of the list. And then we can go and look at the huge numbers of civilian vehicles and ATVs. I mean, just absolutely staggering losses here. And all of these will be geolocated, I presume, by Andrew and his team. ATVs, you've got a good almost, is it 10? Yeah, 9 Desert Cross 1000-3, those golf buggies. And then we have some quads as well and another buggy. So that's an incredibly large number of those, almost all of them destroyed and abandoned. And for the civilian vehicles, vast numbers of destroyed pieces of kit, just absolutely incredible. An awful lot of motorcycles on that list, and general cars, a lot damaged as well, to add on to those that are completely destroyed. Just a phenomenal list of kit. And again, it goes to show that the Russians are losing huge amounts of equipment. The Ukrainians, they're obviously losing equipment as well, but when you look at a day like that, you can't help but think the Russians are in, or should be in, trouble. But of course, they have deep pockets, they have huge stockpiles, and they're able to replace these, or at least have been. I think, though, as mentioned, with the behavioural changes of like using these track garden sheds, I think those stockpiles are running dry. There's another Covert Cabal video out that indicates that the Russians really are in a bit of a spot of bother when it comes to deep reserves and stockpiles. So at some point this year, most people are thinking It could even be in the first 2 quarters of this year. That's what Perun concluded in one of his recent videos. They are going to properly run out of some of these really important bits of kit, MTLBs, BMPs. They'll be losing BMPs at a rate that means they'll be only able to replace them with the manufactured from brand new BMP3s. They won't be able to bring any more BMP2s and 1s out of deep storage. You have no BMP3s left, the more recent one in storage. Yeah, you will surely then, if we are still at war at those points, see Russia really having to contend with a lack of equipment. This then goes to the idea that actually, would Ukraine want to see the war stop right now, just when the Russians might be on the edge of having some serious, really serious equipment issues? Yeah, I don't know. Lots to discuss with regard to these ideas, but you can see both days, the 31st and the 1st, showing exceptionally good ratios for Ukraine. This is really, really good news there. So I thought I would share that with you. Anyway, take care and I'll speak to you soon.